Kaylee was enraged, wanting to tear, throw and smash dishes, especially the ones given as wedding gifts by James's parents. Her soul was filled with resentment, anger and a desire for revenge against James, who cheated on her and wanted her gone. To him, his loving wife was merely an obstacle on his path to wealth. It was astonishing how just 15 minutes ago she was completely happy, and now everything had changed so abruptly that her head was spinning. Her husband had a mistress, and Kaylee had personally hired this very Daisy at work as an accountant. She had always been pleased with her as an employee, and so she accidentally overhears her hubby cunningly and cold-bloodedly discussing a plan to eliminate his wife, and this Daisy gives him advice, wanting to help her lover. He wanted to arrange everything so that he would benefit the most with minimal effort. His legal education was certainly helpful, although as far as Kaylee knew, James never dealt with criminal cases. But then again, she couldn't claim to know him at all. Could she ever have imagined that her husband, along with his mistress, would plot to eliminate her? Who knows what connections and acquaintances he has? It was quite possible that this vile pair could manipulate the situation so that she, Kaylee, would be gone, and they would live happily ever after. Yes, they were dangerous enemies. Therefore, Kaylee couldn't let them know that their scheme had been discovered, or they might accelerate their wicked plan. She had to remain calm to expose the traitors without giving them a chance to escape justice. Both James and Daisy deserved punishment for their treachery, especially since her life was at stake. The apartment, the modestly profitable business, the car, these were pleasant bonuses. It was true what they said, appetite comes with eating. Greedy James didn't want a divorce because it would mean an inevitable division of property. However, he didn't want to share the firm, which Kaylee had founded single-handedly. Of course, they had developed it together, but he wanted to take everything for himself, even what didn't belong to him. 3 years ago, when Kaylee married James, she believed he loved her more than life itself. Yes, it had all started so wonderfully and romantically. Overwhelmed, Kaylee felt tears welling up in her eyes and quickly parked her car in front of the nearest grocery store. Leaning back in her seat, she lost herself in memories. At the time she met James, Kaylee was far from romantic thoughts. She was consumed by the whirlwind of tasks related to opening her own bakery, where she planned to bake pastries using homemade recipes. It was much more challenging than using an established franchise, but she was determined to create an original bakery with her childhood friend Catherine. Their warm and trusting relationship had begun in school, and although they went their separate ways to different colleges, they maintained their friendship almost unchanged. It was remarkable that romantic and often dreamy Kaylee never irritated straightforward and pragmatic Catherine, whose serious, practical advice often helped avoid troubles. The tandem of these two dissimilar young women was perfect, and their roles in the cafe had been established long before starting the business. Catherine, with her accounting background, was ready to handle all financial matters, as she was well versed in them, and to Kaylee's surprise, shared her enthusiasm for balancing debits and credits with love and attention. Kaylee, trained as a pastry chef, had relevant experience for their planned venture, having worked for several years in a reputable establishment where she learned many valuable nuances not taught in school. The registration of the firm and initial capital were significantly aided by the girls' parents, but both Kaylee and Catherine gave their all. However, it was still challenging. Kaylee quickly realized that her experience was insufficient. Being an employee was much easier than managing everything independently, but there was no turning back, and the young women were determined to achieve their goal. On that momentous day, Catherine fell ill, leaving Kaylee to handle the least productive task in the world alone, waiting. The supplier had promised to deliver the ordered furniture in the morning, but it never arrived. Kaylee received several calls throughout the day, asking her to wait just a little longer, so she stayed close to the future pastry shop. Finally, the furniture was delivered in the evening. The assemblers worked efficiently and soon left, leaving behind A pleasant setup. Kaylee was incredibly happy that her long-held idea was finally becoming a reality, but as soon as she closed the door behind the assemblers, she realised how exhausted she was. From experience, she knew that there were two contrasting ways to restore her energy. The easiest way was to indulge in sweets, but this threatened her already imperfect figure. Constantly battling extra pounds, Kaylee tried not to give in to temptation. Her beloved profession and genetics predisposed her to weight gain, so she chose an alternative and healthier option, a walk in the city park. The downpour came suddenly, and her trusty umbrella failed her, refusing to open. She tried to take shelter under a tree to call a taxi, but groaned in frustration. It completely ran out of battery. Of course, this happened at the worst possible moment. So, Kaylee had no other options except going to the bus stop. The cold raindrops sent shivers down her spine. Suddenly, the rain stopped pelting her. "Miss, you're probably already soaked, but let me protect you," a stranger said, sheltering Kaylee under his umbrella. Kaylee was taken aback, but accepted the help. After all, there were other park visitors around, and she didn't feel threatened. The stranger behaved appropriately and didn't suggest anything inappropriate. Together they reached the bus stop, where a crowd had gathered under the shelter. The stranger introduced himself. "My name is James. I was taught that once you start helping someone, you shouldn't abandon them. Given the transport situation, I suggest we take a taxi home comfortably. If you're uncomfortable, I can order 2 cars, but that seems selfish, considering others also need to get home in this weather. I promise you'll be safe. What do you say?" Feeling her wet feet growing colder, Kaylee agreed. She gave him her address and promised to pay him back for the ride once her phone was charged. James, tracking the taxi's arrival on his app, didn't respond. As the bus stop wasn't large enough for everyone, they stood silently under the umbrella. Soon James pointed to a car parking nearby and cheerfully announced, "Here's our cab." Kaylee was relieved to be in the warm car. When she asked for his phone number to transfer the fare, James handed her his business card. "There's no need to transfer money. I can easily afford a taxi ride, especially since we're practically going the same way. I just thought you or someone you know might need legal services someday. You are welcome to call me. I'll be happy to help." As Kaylee exited the car near her home, she thanked the man who had unexpectedly come to her aid. "Thank you again." And as soon as her smartphone charged at home, Kaylee hurried to send James the money, but she soon received an SMS informing her that the entire amount had been returned. The message also read, "Glad to have met you." Shrugging, she decided not to resend the money. It does seem a bit petty and selfish, she thought. After some consideration, Kaylee decided that once the cafe opened, she would send her rescuer an invitation to try any treat on the house. This seemed like the most appropriate gesture. About a week later, after much stress, Kaylee and Catherine's cafe welcomed its first customers. They saw a steady stream of visitors, and Catherine even had to help the staff. In the middle of the day, James came in with a bouquet of flowers. So their romance started. Kaylee was completely charmed by him, and he quickly became indispensable to her. However, there was a tension between James and Catherine. Catherine would grimace whenever James complimented her, and didn't hesitate to snap back if he criticised her. "Listen, Kaylee, I understand love can make you dizzy, but haven't you noticed James's strange eyes? It's like he's scanning people for weaknesses to exploit later, and his pupils, they dilate and constrict like a predator's." Kaylee defended her beloved, attributing his intense gaze to his former police work. She urged her beloved not to take Catherine's criticism personally, even though James often made unprovoked jabs at her. Their joint outings soon ceased. James, though outwardly polite, managed to irritate Kaylee with his numerous probing questions directed at Catherine. He wanted to know everything about her, where she studied, lived, her work experience, and even her preferred clothing stores. Eventually, Catherine grew tired of his interrogations. "James, why do you think you're interrogating me in your office? Look around, we're in a movie theatre lobby, and Kaylee with us. Pay attention to her, not me. I'm sick of your questions and having to defend myself for no reason." With that, Catherine hastily said goodbye to her friend and left. From then on, Catherine avoided any interaction with James, often ignoring his questions altogether. By autumn, the cafe had become a success, attracting regular customers, including many students from the nearby university. Kaylee was overjoyed. According to the figures Catherine showed her, they were finally seeing a net profit. Although it was modest, it was a significant milestone. "We haven't recouped our investments yet," the accountant reported, "but if things continue at this pace, by early February, we should break even and start making a profit. We should think about adding something special to our assortment for the new year." Catherine's idea proved successful, and soon they were developing recipes for festive decorated cookies. Alongside the growing profits, another joyous event occurred. James proposed to Kaylee, and without hesitation she accepted. Catherine, upon hearing the news, grimaced and shared her feelings bluntly. "I'm sorry for you, Kaylee. This slippery James is clearly not marrying you out of love." Kaylee was deeply hurt. "So, you think I'm unlovable? Is it because I'm overweight? Well, let me tell you, James loves my figure just the way it is." Catherine tried to explain. "It's not about your appearance. You look fine, though I've noticed you swayed from croissants to oatmeal cookies with your coffee, even skipping sugar and cream. I'm just saying, watch how James acts when he thinks no one is looking. He always seems to be calculating something." After that ugly argument between the friends, they barely spoke afterward, except for work-related matters. Despite the disagreement and her mother's pleas to reconsider, Kaylee was determined to marry James. She saw doubts about him as personal insults. The only thing in which she went against the groom was his desire to conclude a prenuptial agreement. For some reason, romantic Kaylee felt that this reduces the bright feeling of love to a pragmatic deal. James did not insist, but at his gentle request, the money was used to buy a family car. Kaylee was not embarrassed that she did not have a driver's license at that time, and in fact, the car became indivisibly owned solely by her husband. He occasionally gave her rides, but their schedules often didn't align. She was used to taking public transportation to work and back to the apartment she now shared with James. Driving lessons were continually postponed due to her busy schedule. The business demanded constant attention, with competitors opening similar establishments nearby. They had to stay ahead, not just meeting demand but also innovating. After careful consideration and calculations, they introduced new items. Some ideas didn't work out, but overall, the business growth was satisfying for the owners and employees. There were a few unpleasant incidents where customers sought compensation for allegedly poor quality products. James intervened and resolved these issues out of court, earning Kaylee's admiration and deepening her love for him. He seemed like her ideal man. However, dissatisfied customers were rare. Most visitors enjoyed the cafe, but the young businesswoman was not satisfied with the results achieved. They introduced healthier sweets for the health-conscious. Kaylee, though she didn't admit it at first, was self-conscious about her figure. She disliked her plump knees, arms, and the fat concealing her waistline. The young woman began to adhere to a strict diet. The mode of calorie deficit was not immediately notable, but still went in favour of the figure. But from the former cheerful character, there was almost nothing left. Only trust in her husband was unchanged. Over time, Kaylee and Catherine decided to expand their business and open another cafe. Though it would bring more stress and chaos, they believed it was necessary for growth. Kaylee was excited to share the idea of expanding their cafe with James. However, James's response was unexpectedly sceptical. "I think the cafe should show much more efficient results. I don't want to upset you, but if you want my opinion, I'll give it to you straight. You need to double-check how your dear Catherine is handling the accounting. I suspect she's embezzling money, taking advantage of your trust. Opening a new location is just another opportunity for her to deceive you. She'll collude with the renovation crew and profit even more from your naivety." Kaylee was outraged. "What are you saying, James? Catherine is like a sister to me. We've been friends since school and I trust her completely." But James persisted. "I'm telling you, she's stealing your profits, rejoicing in your trusting nature. She's jealous of you and wants to sabotage your happiness. She even tried to charm me to spite you. I regret not recording her calling you names and suggesting we have an affair." Kaylee struggled to believe her husband. Ending a friendship of over 17 years was not easy. However, James continued to persuade her that Catherine was a snake in human body. Nevertheless, the second cafe opened, but James took full control of the renovation. During this period, Catherine often complained to Kaylee about the inflated costs, but Kaylee reassured her that James knew what he was doing. Catherine pointed out discrepancies in the expense report, but James dismissed her accusations, accusing her of comparing prices with outdated listings and unskilled labourers. "Catherine, calm down and stop sticking your nose where you're not an expert. You think you're an expert, but you're just a meddler in heels." Catherine wanted to argue, but Kaylee intervened to prevent a conflict. "Please stop it," she said. "You can't just chase after the cheapest option. Quality materials and a reliable crew are essential for a perfect result. These costs ensure everything will be done professionally and quickly, without unnecessary stress." James and Catherine exchanged hostile glances, but the incident was over. However, James continued to warn Kaylee about trusting Catherine, causing tension between the friends. A year went on, and a heated argument erupted between the friends. They were discussing the opening of a third cafe. James found a place for it and even made a deposit from their family savings. Catherine criticised the location, calling it a poor choice and accusing James of overpaying. Kaylee defended her husband, accusing Catherine of flirting with him. "Everything you've said is nonsense." Catherine laughed off the accusations. "I swear I have no interest in your precious James. In fact, I despise him for driving a wedge between us. He's a manipulative opportunist, systematically eliminating any competition for resources, leaving himself as the sole beneficiary. Think yourself. He lives on your territory, drives a car registered in his name but bought with your money, and you've almost entirely renewed his wardrobe. Think about it and calculate how much he actually contributes to your family budget. It's time to open your eyes. Don't you see that James is driving a wedge between us? How can you be so naive? Since we're having this conversation, let me tell you that James tried to make a move on me, not the other way around. But he failed and I told him off. When that didn't work, he decided to turn you against me. I do my piece of work. Everything in our business is fine with the accounting. You can even order an additional independent audit if you like. But I'm warning you, it will be a waste of money. If your only concern is keeping James happy, then we're not on the same page. I'm tired of him meddling in everything, even things he knows nothing about, and turning you against me. So, if you're going to bring in auditors, you might as well find a new accountant too. After this total lack of trust, I doubt we can continue working together as before." Kaylee was furious, offended, and a little scared. James had warned her that Catherine would respond exactly like this, which meant he was right about other things too. The audit demanded by James was conducted, and no violations were found. But despite Kaylee's efforts to persuade her friend not to quit, Catherine was adamant. The issue of her share in the business was also resolved. When Kaylee, at James's suggestion, offered to buy Catherine's share, Catherine agreed, though her eyes were filled with contempt. "I hope you know what you're doing," Catherine said coldly. "I'm giving up my stake in the business and resigning as a partner because I want nothing to do with a family controlled by a deceitful man. I want to warn you one last time. Don't lose yourself in him. James is not someone you should trust blindly." Soon, James found a prominent and skillful accountant for their business. Daisy took Catherine's place, and Kaylee, in her naivety, never questioned how easily everything fell into place. She was too busy and too in love to suspect her husband. James had become everything to her, lover, friend and adviser. At his insistence, Kaylee finally learned to drive and got her licence. James gave her his old car, assuring her it was reliable. He bought himself a new fancy car, as their financial situation allowed for 2 vehicles. And so a seemingly beautiful story ended in a horrible, almost cliched way. Today, Kaylee returned from another city where she had attended a specialised exhibition. Everything had gone well. She met new people, showcased her work, and bought new equipment. The trip was productive and enjoyable, though she was exhausted. Against her better judgment, Kaylee decided to return home that evening instead of staying overnight. Along the way, she decided to check on the renovation progress at a new cafe location. The lit windows indicated someone was inside, but she couldn't park near the entrance due to roadwork. Kaylee parked nearby and approached the building, quietly opening the door with her key. The main hall was empty, and she was about to call out a greeting when she heard her husband's voice in the potential kitchen area. He wasn't talking to the workers, but to Daisy. "I regret not making that lovesick cow sign a prenuptial agreement back then," James said. "I would have worded it so she wouldn't understand, and after the divorce, she'd be left with nothing. Then you and I could have lived it up, but for now, we have to be careful." "Can we at least have some fun tonight? Go out or rent a place?" Daisy asked. "This is too risky, honey," James sighed. "Daisy, I'd invite you over, but my mother-in-law might drop by at any moment. She's a fat cow, and so is her daughter." "James, you're not being fair. Your wife has lost weight recently." Not knowing Kaylee was listening, James laughed. "A skinny cow isn't a timid doe. Her skin is sagging, even though she tries to exercise, and her personality has become unpleasant. You, on the other hand, are a delight, in body and soul." "And body?" Daisy flirted. "Yes, and body. I want to enjoy your company in comfort. But we have to be careful for now. Don't worry, we'll bury that cow and take everything." Kaylee stood rooted to the spot, her heart pounding. She wanted to confront them but couldn't move. Daisy's next words sent a chill down her spine. "James, it's better to have Kaylee cremated. That way no one will ever know the real cause of your sudden widowhood." "You're a dangerous one, Daisy." In James's voice as he spoke to his mistress, there was both admiration and something akin to fear. "Watching too many detective shows, aren't you? Quite the schemer. And I must say, you're probably right. Cremation is the perfect way to hide the evidence, not in water but in fire. I'll have to discuss the burial method with her parents, but I think I can convince them of the suitability of the option I propose. It's unfortunate that they will also be in line to inherit, but that can be dealt with. After all, who knows what might happen to them in their grief over losing their daughter." "I trust you'll handle everything perfectly," Daisy cooed admiringly. The sound of kisses followed. Instinctively recoiling from the revulsion that overcame her, Kaylee knocked over a water bottle left on the floor by the workers. "Oh, James!" Daisy exclaimed. "I think I heard a noise in the next room." "Nonsense, the workers left long ago. Maybe a mouse survived thanks to the negligence of the pest control guys," James assured her. "I think you're just imagining things. Come on, don't worry, and don't get distracted. We have more pleasant things to do than chasing mice, my dear. Kaylee even covered her mouth with her hand to stop from screaming in indignation and disgust at the sickly sweet tone of James's voice. James, please go and check what's there. I can't relax thinking someone might be nearby or even watching us. Without waiting for Daisy to persuade James to check the room, Kaylee hurried away quietly so as not to reveal that she had been there and heard such an unpleasant conversation. The woman was horrified. So, her mother and father were also in danger. She couldn't risk her parents' safety. She wouldn't worry them either. Kaylee couldn't bear the thought of going home and pretending to James that she missed him and was happy to see him, as if nothing had changed between them. Ironically, the only person Kaylee, betrayed by her seemingly loving husband and trusted colleague, could turn to for help was Catherine. But how could her once offended friend react to a plea to at least listen and give good advice? Barely breathing, Kaylee listened to the long beeps and then finally heard Catherine's energetic greeting through the speaker. "Hello? Catherine, please forgive me for everything. You were completely right. I'm in such a situation that I'm scared, terribly scared. Please, let's meet. I can't tell you everything over the phone." Whether Catherine had forgiven her friend or decided to gloat, Kaylee didn't care. The important thing was that she heard the words she so desperately needed. "All right, come over. You probably haven't forgotten the address. My parents conveniently went on vacation, otherwise they probably wouldn't have let you in the door." Unlike her friend, Catherine had no desire to live separately from her parents. With her rational mind, she figured it made no sense to get into a mortgage trap and preferred to save up the necessary amount gradually to avoid overpaying. Soon, Kaylee was sitting in the cosy kitchen, listening to the steady ticking of the antique clock that had been there since their childhood, and after telling Catherine about her problem, she summed it up. "So, that's the mess I'm in. You have every right to say you warned me not to trust James completely. I made a big mistake, and now I'm surprised at myself for not noticing what kind of person he really is. Probably the whole staff knows about his affair with Daisy, except me." Having listened to her friend without interrupting, Catherine shook her head. "Even I didn't expect such a thing from your husband, although I noticed that he was a real scoundrel without principles or morals. I didn't think he would go to such lengths for gain. Forgive me for saying unpleasant things, but since they are leaning towards cremation, they will likely choose to poison as the method of your elimination. Perhaps the best course of action would be to move out of your apartment for a while and strictly refuse any food or drink offered by James and Daisy. However, there is a catch here too. Your enemies could slip the poison to you indirectly, simply by placing it within your reach. Going to the police would probably be useless and might even be more dangerous than dealing with James yourself. As I understand it, you didn't record the conversation between your husband and his mistress, and besides, he might still have friends among the law enforcement. Your word against his. Not a strong position. James is a lawyer, and things could turn out terribly for you. You really got yourself into a mess with this, James. Now you'll have to work hard to get out of it without losses. So, you can't run away. And starting a scandal right now is also dangerous. Who knows how the sweet couple of lovers would react? You'll have to outsmart them, but we need to think everything through cautiously. The friends began to consider their options, but the conversation was interrupted by the ringing of Kaylee's smartphone. It was James calling. Answer, but don't talk to him for long, or he might sense something's wrong from your voice. Tell him you're terribly tired and going to bed, Catherine advised in a whisper, for some reason. James spoke to Kaylee kindly and affectionately. She almost began to doubt what she had heard, him dreaming of a happy life as a rich widower. As her friend had advised, the woman spoke less and listened more. A few minutes later, she quickly ended the conversation with a feigned yawn. James, I'm incredibly tired today. I'll see you tomorrow. Assured the call had ended, Kaylee placed the smartphone on the table and grimaced, trying to hold back the tears, threatening to escape. How can someone lie so perfectly? She said. If I didn't know he was desperate to get rid of me, I might have believed his words about our separation being unbearable. He lies so cynically, deceives so unscrupulously, speaks tender words without the slightest hint of his true feelings or desire to destroy me. Kaylee, unfortunately, it was obvious to everyone but you that your chosen one was a fraud. You didn't listen to anyone's advice. But there's no time to regret the past. Something has to be done in the present to avoid an even more complicated situation. First, don't panic. It won't help and could even make things worse. I'm afraid that with Daisy's help, James has transferred a significant sum to secret accounts, possibly opened under false names. Of course, if they planned to eliminate you completely, they might not have bothered with extra precautions. Why risk getting caught if, after a short while, they can gain a much larger prize? Our first step will be to uncover the details of their plot. It might be best to ensure your parents are safe by sending them away until this is resolved. We need to stay alert, notice any strange occurrences, and gather evidence to expose the traitors. It would be helpful to listen in on James's conversations, but unfortunately, I don't know anyone who can quickly provide such equipment. Kaylee shook her head. Neither do I, and honestly, I'm not sure if I can pretend to be a loving wife, knowing James's treachery. I'm scared and disgusted at the same time. Catherine doubted the reliability of her strategy. Yes, I didn't consider that. Your face reveals your emotions as clearly as a screen, so we'll have to act boldly and swiftly. For this plan, surprise and support are key. Then, second option, tomorrow morning when James leaves the apartment, which is entirely yours, by the way, a locksmith will change the locks. It's unlikely that James has already poisoned your favourite coffee or other personal items, but I wouldn't rule out the possibility. So, Kaylee, to be safe, restock your supplies. Next, we need to lure Daisy away from her workplace so she can't delete any incriminating data. Then, you file for divorce and begin the property division process. It might be challenging, but at least it will be an open fight. I can check the accounting if you trust me, or you can hire independent auditors. I think our chances of success are good. You might want to file a police report in case James tries to harm you, but he'll probably be too afraid to act directly. Kaylee confessed. Catherine, I prefer the second option. I can't play these games. Catherine shrugged. That's understandable. You're honest and straightforward, even if you're easily influenced. So let's get some sleep. Tomorrow, great things await us, but first, we'll arrange for a locksmith to be on standby. Kaylee didn't know how to thank her friend for forgiving the bitter hurt she had caused. All words seemed hollow and insufficient. She was overwhelmed by Catherine's generosity and apologised again for risking their long-standing friendship over someone so unworthy. In the morning, Catherine informed her boss that she would arrive closer to lunchtime and accompanied Kaylee to her apartment. James was already gone, and while the locksmith changed the locks, the friends sorted through potentially dangerous food items, disposing of them in bags. Then they packed James's belongings into suitcases. By the time the locksmith handed Kaylee the new keys, everything was ready. After locking the apartment, they headed to the cafe that had once been their joint project. On the way, Kaylee messaged Daisy, asking her to meet at their third cafe. Ensuring Daisy had left, the friends entered the building. Catherine immediately began examining the computer, and soon she found documents incriminating the dishonest accountant and changed the computer password to prevent Daisy from tampering with the evidence. The cafe bustled with activity, unaware of the dramatic changes unfolding. James was surprised when Kaylee called him to inform him she was filing for divorce. "Very funny, darling, but today isn't April Fool's Day. I have a lot to do. You can explain this silly idea tonight. See you later, sweetheart." Kaylee looked at her friend in disbelief, and Catherine smirked. "He's totally confident you're still madly in love with him, but I bet he's calling his mistress right now to figure out what's happening. They'll be here soon, mark my words. They'll probably arrive separately." Catherine was right. The friends had barely finished their coffee when James entered the office. For a moment, the man's handsome face contorted in a grimace as he saw his wife in the company of Catherine. However, he instantly regained control of his emotions and, after greeting them, addressed his wife and then her friend. "Kaylee, I insist that you explain to me what happened during your business trip, and this conversation is clearly not for outsiders. Catherine, I hope you have the tact to leave me alone with my wife. We have much to discuss." "James, we won't talk in private. If you want, let's discuss what you wanted to discuss. I'm listening to you intently." The man was taken aback, but raising his hands in a mock surrender, he asked, "What is this unfortunate joke about a divorce?" "No, James, I'm not joking." Kaylee spoke calmly, though she had to clench her fists until her knuckles turned white. "We are getting a divorce, and that is final. I don't want to voice the reasons aloud, and besides, you know them well. Tell me when you can come to pick up your things." James was not about to give up without a fight, and Kaylee, who had accidentally overheard his conversation with his mistress, understood why. He wanted more than what he would get in a fair divorce. He wanted a bigger and tastier piece of the family pie. This analogy, which came to mind unbidden, helped Kaylee listen to her unfaithful husband with a touch of humour. "Kaylee, I don't understand anything. I can only guess that Catherine is involved in this situation. Darling, if you want my opinion, such interference in purely family matters is unacceptable." Unexpectedly, Kaylee found herself amused. "Darling, indeed. I thought you wouldn't dare call me that to my face, because you used to call me Fat Cow." The fear she saw in her husband's eyes gave her confidence, and she continued. James understood that somehow his wife had found out how he referred to her behind her back, but he still tried to play his part, speaking in his deep, well-modulated voice. "Darling, every family has disagreements, crises and grievances, but for the sake of love, we must learn to communicate and compromise. What are you lacking? I spend enough time with you and help with the business. Isn't that enough? If you like, let's take a little break. Take a trip somewhere, relax. When you return, refreshed and content, we can continue this conversation. I love you and have no intention of getting a divorce." While Kaylee was stunned by her husband's audacity, and currently, just as Catherine had predicted, Daisy entered the office. She greeted everyone and headed to her desk, but Kaylee addressed her, making her words a barrier. "Daisy, I hope you won't make a scene and will resign voluntarily. I have discovered your dishonesty and will not tolerate such a person in my company or my life." Daisy looked to her lover for support, but James remained silent. She decided to defend herself. "Actually, I know my rights. I don't know what you're talking about, but I perform my duties conscientiously, and your allegations of dishonesty are not grounds for dismissal. If necessary, I will contact the Labour Inspectorate, involve every regulatory body I can, and create such a scandal that all your cafes will be shut down. You'll be begging on the streets. Understand? I won't lecture you. It seems pointless," Catherine intervened. "There are more than enough grounds for terminating your employment, so, Daisy, it's better not to make threats, but to choose a less painful way to part with your job. Think about it." Kaylee's offer is an act of genuine mercy. Most business owners in her position would make life very difficult for a dishonest accountant like you, and it's clear James won't rush to your aid." Blushing, Daisy stormed out of the office. James glared at Catherine with hatred before turning to Kaylee. "Fine, I understand. You need some time to cool off. I'll come home around 8 this evening and we can talk in a calm setting. Hopefully without witnesses." He glanced at Catherine before adding, "By the way, Catherine, mind your own business and stay out of ours." With that, he left the office, slamming the door behind him. Soon, Catherine, after reassuring her friend, returned to her own work, asking, "Should I come over this evening? I don't think you should be alone with that monster. Who knows what he might do?" Kaylee shook her head. "Thank you, Catherine. I don't think it's necessary. My parents are coming over this evening. You've already done so much for me, although I must admit I would be happy to see you. Maybe, after the unpleasant part of the evening with James is over, we can sit and chat like old times." Catherine, glancing at her smartphone, hurried to say goodbye. "You know, I've missed our chats too. I'll try not to be late, and I'm afraid James won't peacefully collect his things. So if you don't mind, I'll bring Robert Miller with me. Remember him?" Kaylee, of course, vividly remembered the classmate who had always tried unsuccessfully to win Catherine's affection. "Honestly, I didn't even know he was in town. Didn't he move away? Anyway, feel free to come over. We'll have a little reunion. My parents will be delighted." Later that day, James, preparing for his evening meeting with Kaylee, bought a gentleman's reconciliation kit, a large bouquet of her favourite flowers, a bottle of fine champagne, and an exquisite bracelet. He expected his charm and eloquence, along with the treats and the gift, to win her over, but his key wouldn't fit in the lock. This unexpected obstacle soured his mood, but he had no choice. He planned to reconcile with his wife, gain her forgiveness, and then eliminate her. He stood outside the door, calming his rage. When his breath steadied, he rang the bell. Finding Kaylee not alone was another unpleasant surprise. Her parents stood behind her, their expressions stern, but James, ignoring the packed bags in the hallway, greeted them and stepped inside. "Kaylee, my love, we should at least try to resolve this peacefully, and you've even bought a support group. I came in good faith, hoping to make amends. I love you and you love me. Why get a divorce? What man doesn't have a little fling? I swear, my love, I swear on anything, I'll never look at another woman again. What do you say?" Kaylee was once again shocked by her husband's audacity. How could he stand there so composed with flowers and gifts, confident in his charm and the success of his visit? "You know what, James?" Kaylee replied with a bitter smile. "How did I end up marrying such a deceitful monster? Just a day ago, you and your mistress were plotting to get rid of me, and now you're here, trying to make amends and reconcile. You even seem sincere in your promises of fidelity. At least you don't swear, 'till death do us part.' That would have been laughable, given what I heard yesterday. Take your things and get out of my life. Know that if you cause any more trouble for me, you'll face the consequences. Take this chance for a peaceful resolution." His carefully concealed irritation finally surfaced. "So, these bags, so thoughtfully packed to save my time, contain only clothes? As your legal husband, I'm entitled to some of the electronics. Did you really think I'd just take the clothes and leave? That's not serious. Nobility shouldn't be mistaken for foolishness. I'll take everything I'm entitled to by law." Kaylee's father intervened. "Dear son-in-law, you have a legal background, don't you? Remind me, what's the penalty for conspiring to commit a crime? Do you still want the appliances?"
What will you need it for in prison? Can you tell me?"
James, caught off guard, struggled to respond to the serious accusation. Catherine's boyfriend, whom James hadn't noticed before, gently but firmly escorted him out of the apartment, followed by the bags. Separately, Kaylee bought out a boxed dinner set, a wedding gift from her mother-in-law, and a gaming console she had once given her beloved husband. "Here, James, the discs are in the bag too. Enjoy your games, but don't even think about reconciling with me. It's over. I know it's foolish to expect decency from you, but please don't bother me anymore. For the sake of the good times we shared, let's end this peacefully." James said nothing, abruptly turning and walking away with his belongings. He had expected a different outcome when preparing for the meeting. Now it was clear his wife knew about the plot to eliminate her, not only about his infidelity. Daisy had been right to worry about the strange noises. He should have checked it out yesterday. Perhaps the situation would have turned in his favour. Now all he could do was gather his bags and go to his mistress. Unlike James, who had been practically escorted out, the mood in Kayla's apartment was upbeat. Her parents suggested Kaylee to move in with them, but the young woman nodded in agreement. She felt her apartment, tainted by her husband's betrayal, needed a fresh start. She decided to renovate, at least cosmetically, and rearrange the furniture to erase all memories of her brief marriage. Her family and friend enthusiastically supported the idea. Robert promised that he would soon contact a reliable acquaintance who could handle the renovation without any hassle. The whole night, 3 former classmates reminisced about their fun school pranks. "Listen, Robert, what made you return to your childhood town? There were rumours that you opened something like a hotel complex down south," Kaylee inquired. The rumours were correct but slightly distorted. I did live in the south. I was renovating my grandparents' house, where my parents now live, because they prefer the climate there. I also built a guest house on the property, so my sister's family would have autonomous living space. It's not quite a hotel complex, and wasn't built for profit, but I must say it turned out very cosy. However, I didn't want to stay in the south permanently. I have a personal interest here. Living away from Catherine made me realise that I couldn't be without her any longer. I'm tired of being single and worried that someone more persistent might take her away. "Finally! I'm so happy for you both. I'll organise the wedding cake for you. Any design and flavour you want. Just let me know the date." The evening, which had started so tense and unpleasant, ended with a pleasant conversation about wedding details. Kaylee was happy for her friend and cautiously asked, "Catherine, would you consider working with me again? Of course, besides your salary, you'll get a percentage of the sales." Catherine was honest. "You know, I believe everything happens for the best. My current job suits me just fine. And, to be honest, there's another reason why I can't take your offer." Catherine paused and then turned to Robert. "Can I reveal another one of our secrets?" After a kiss on the cheek, which served as permission, Catherine shared the news of her pregnancy with her friend. "Well, that's why we decided to hurry with the wedding. We want our child to be born in wedlock. So you see, there's no point in hiring me. I'm going on maternity leave, and then there will be sick days with the baby." Kaylee was delighted that Catherine and Robert were finally happy together and wished them all the best. However, her own life was complicated. James's parents were constantly urging her to forgive her husband, both over the phone and in person. One day her mother-in-law came to Kaylee's workplace and started pleading. "Kaylee, why are you so hard on James? Life is not a walk in the park. All men cheat, but some are better at hiding it. James is just honest. He doesn't have the habit of lying, and that's something to appreciate. Call him right now in my presence and make up with him." But resentment is for ordinary dumb. Confident people don't allow themselves such feelings. Stop dwelling on nonsense. You're already 25, not exactly fresh on the marriage market. A divorcee, even without kids, is not a good look. You have a strange business in a highly competitive field, always on the brink of bankruptcy and pride. That's all you have. Come on, pick up the phone and call him. What are you waiting for? Kaylee was tired of listening to the moralizing, grim predictions, veiled insults, direct orders, and blurted out, "Please, enough. I've listened to you long enough, but I won't stay silent any more. I'm divorcing your wonderful son, not just because he had an affair with the accountant behind my back. I don't know what James told you, but the affair is the least of it. What I never expected when I got married was that my husband would be so tired of me that he would plan to physically eliminate me and then bury or cremate me. Be glad I didn't go to the police about him and his girlfriend. I spared them, but mostly you and your husband. I can't imagine what respectable parents must feel, knowing they raised a scoundrel. I hope now you understand that I won't be calling or reconciling with your son." The woman pursed her lips, said goodbye and left. The divorce and property division were far from smooth. However, with the help of an experienced lawyer, recommended by Robert, Kaylee managed to keep her entire network of establishments. James was furious because it was proven that Daisy had embezzled money from Kaylee's accounts multiple times. He had to help his lover get out of this predicament, as she promised to keep quiet about the crime they had planned. Overall, after 3 years of marriage, James was left with only his car and had to move out of Kaylee's cosy apartment. In her new status as a divorcee, as her mother-in-law had characterised it, Kaylee found nothing wrong. She felt free and even happy. She also decided to get rid of the space where she had overheard James and Daisy's conversation. Although the walls were not to blame for being silent witnesses to their treacherous plan, she did not want constant reminders of the negativity. She paid a small penalty to terminate the lease, but felt it was worth it. Kaylee decided not to rush into opening a third cafe, but to focus on her existing ones and take her time finding a new, more suitable location. A few months later, Robert called with a good offer, but when Kaylee heard the address, her hopes faded. "Thank you, Robert, but the rent in that area is too high for me." Robert insisted she call the owner. "I'll send you the owner's number. His name is William Martinez. Give him a call. Maybe you can negotiate a discount. It's worth a try. Asking doesn't cost anything." Kaylee thanked him and immediately made the call. Their business-like conversation meeting happened at one of Kaylee's cafes. "Mr. Martinez, I think you'll see that your space is perfect for my needs," she said. The man agreed, but after enjoying the treats, smiled and said, "Everything was delicious, Kaylee. You're clearly a pastry pro. However, you're quite naive when it comes to negotiating rent. Why show your interest so openly? It's only natural that the rent will go up. But don't worry, I won't take advantage of you." He offered her a significant discount and over time became a regular at the new cafe. Eventually, a romantic relationship blossomed between William and Kaylee. On the anniversary of the cafe's opening, it was closed for a private event, the wedding of the couple whose fates had intertwined in that very space. 10 years had passed. William and Kaylee now had a son and a daughter. Kaylee was happy and rarely thought about her failed first marriage until her shopping cart collided with another in the supermarket. She began to apologise but stopped when she saw Daisy standing before her. The former beauty had faded. Even her once vibrant blue eyes seemed dull. Clearly recognising Kaylee, Daisy deliberately bumped her cart again and walked away. James, once so fit, emerged from a nearby aisle stocked with beer and snacks. The sight of the dishevelled, overweight man, now firmly under Daisy's thumb, filled Kaylee with disbelief. Had this man's betrayal once caused her so much pain? She silently thanked fate for the heartache that had led her to true happiness. Now her life was perfect.